So it looks like Iran is back to seriously escalating its rhetoric. We know that the U.S., I think it's called is it a destroyer or aircraft carrier, Abraham Lincoln, I think it is, went into the Persian Gulf. We saw, I don't know exactly what Prime Minister Netanyahu was reacting to, but he had a video saying that the Iranians are the aggressors, and Zarif, the foreign minister, of course, is lying as usual. But the BBC, it was unbelievable. These people are such morons. It's just unbelievable. You know, it's the same people that ignored Hitler, and it's just as if they live in a delusional fantasy where America is the aggressor. But the real reason I wanted to put out this video is it's really, really, really critical to understand what exactly does Iran want. And the answer to that, you have to understand. In order to understand a people, you have to understand its book. You have to understand the value system that they hold. Nobody could understand America if they don't understand the belief in democracy. You can't understand Russia, and most people don't understand Russia. I was recently speaking to a Russian doctor. He immigrated to Overland Park, and basically something that Americans will never understand. But basically, so the average Russian, they look at Putin or they look at whoever's in charge as the czar. It's a different reality. It's almost like a tribal reality. So it's our tribe versus your tribe. And once you understand that, it explains all of Russian behavior because it's all about promoting the tribe, Russia. Now, in order to understand Iran, you have to understand, first of all, the Iranian people are subjects of the dictatorship, the Ayatollahs, which really is a fancy word for saying clerics. The imams, the lahavdillah, you would call it a rabbi, a priest, or a pastor. So these people have taken over the country. We're not going to go into it. There are millions of videos that will go into it. But what I want to go into is a simple question. What will Iran gain from nuclear weapons? Now, it's well known that Iran has oil. They're an oil exporter, so they don't need it for energy. What is the reason they seek nuclear weapons? Now, on the top of their nuclear weapons, as President Trump correctly said, this is absolutely sick, they write destruction to Israel. Now, in order to understand Iran, again, Iran is run by a couple of clerics, a couple of what we would call radical, what they would call normal and correct. Let's call them reverends. And their belief system. You have to understand two things to understand why Iran does what it does. The first is, this is very funny, and I heard this from an Iranian. If you want to get information, you have to go to the source. You have to go to the people that come from the country, that understand the mentality. You can be an American and you can study it your whole life, but the person on the inside, and I know this from myself, a lot of people, there's university studies on Lubavitch. Now, I'm Lubavitch my whole life. I understand Lubavitch from the inside. It's exactly like if you made a study on my family. It's useless compared to me that has been in the family. So when you speak to somebody from the inside, you understand exactly what's going on. And I'll spend a year, 2 years, till I find somebody that will give me the information. And in 1 second, you have the motive. You understand. The whole thing makes sense. So the first thing you have to understand is that obviously they are what we would call Muslim fundamentalists. But again, from their perspective, they're not fundamentalists. Their perspective is they're following the Quran. They're doing, obviously they're Shiites, they're not Sunnis, but they're doing what they feel is right. And they believe, they have a tradition that if Israel becomes a state, this is not a Sunni tradition, it's a Shiite tradition. If Israel becomes a state, then Islam is wrong. I don't want to speak negatively against Islam. Don't want to offend anyone, but Islam seems, and again, I want to say this in a nice way, but it seems to be a very, I don't know how to call it, but it's almost like a self-conscious religion. They've got all these kind of things, like if there's a contradiction in the Quran, that means Islam is wrong. There's like 1,000 different things. If this, Islam is wrong. I've never seen anything in Judaism that said if this, Judaism is wrong. I don't know that much about Christianity, but if this, I mean, if you're confident in your beliefs, why would you have a million different reasons if this is wrong? That's a separate issue. I mean, based on their own statements, I mean, if there's a contradiction, I mean, I could show you 1,000 contradictions to the Quran. Each verse, I shouldn't say each verse, but many verses contradict themselves in the same verse. But that's, I mean, so in other words, what people who are brought up in a faith system, they have a very strong need to confirm their faith. Obviously, they have no proof. So it's just an idea. The fact that everybody doesn't believe it is already a very strong doubt. So you have, let's say, 200 million Shiites, so they have this need to confirm. Now, if you believe that if Israel exists, then your religion doesn't exist. And that's why they don't even allow themselves to call Israel a state. You know, the Mossad was negotiating with Iran, and they had some backdoor channels. They're speaking, I don't want to go into all the details of what it was, but so he said, oh, so you're agreeing that Israel's a state? No, Israel's not a state. So they're playing this like this theological game, because if they can in their mind say that one day Israel will be destroyed, so then Islam is still true. So that's one thing that you have to understand with the morons. The second thing you have to understand, and this is very, very important. It's been reported on Fox, but again, I heard this directly from an Iranian. Every single monotheistic faith, which is basically an imitation of Judaism, has a sense of the Messiah coming. Now, you can look at many videos. Iran is all about the 12th Mahdi. They believe he's in some well, and they've got a whole hookup system that when he comes out of this well, I think the 2 other dudes in the well with him. But anyway, Iran, and again, I don't want to make fun of it because that's their tradition, but they believe that they're the ones that are going to bring the 12th Mahdi, which is the one who basically brings the Messiah. Ironically, they think that Jesus is the Messiah, but that's another story. But in any event, they are gun-ho on bringing the 12th Mahdi. The problem, little minor detail, is that in order to bring the 12th Mahdi, you have to have a world that is up to a horse's knee in blood. That's a direct quote. So why does Iran want nuclear weapons? Why do they want ballistic missiles? If only Europe, the people that allowed the Holocaust, having just suffered World War I, that made a Treaty of Versailles to not allow Germany, and they're like, I don't know what Europeans are like. They're like, I could say they're like blind rats. That's all they are. But the fact of the matter is that Iran has one intention, and that is to, as they call America, the great Satan, Israel, the little Satan. They have a theological need to blow up the world.